Hello, Internet, and welcome to another Wednesday's Serial. It's been a minute, so I'm just going to go through the books of the week and see if you guys agree with me at all. First up is Amazing Spider-Man 31. This is the end, I believe, of the Secret Empire tie-in, with Doc Ock being a member of Hydra and whatnot, and Peter taking his company back. This issue is wrought with spoilers, so I don't want to really discuss it right now. I'm sure the ramifications and how that's going to play out is actually going to be more interesting as we move into, sadly, the next Amazing Spider-Man tie into the whole Legacy event. That's the one part I do want to talk about because I actually wrote something to them. I was fairly disappointed with the fact that this return of Doc Ock was tied into an event, and tied into essentially what boils down to some editorial stuff is what it feels like. Spider-Man fighting Doc Ock for the first time, and especially given the context of everything that happened post-Superior Spider-Man, is a slow build that's not only had the weight of so much history on it right now, it also had the weight of being built up over, over basically 30 issues prior in this Amazing Spider-Man Volume 5 or whatever we're on, before they hit the renumbering again. It's unfortunate to see so much of the weight and the gravitas pulled from what was a moment that had more gravitas and moment built to it than nearly anything else in modern comics right now. And to just have that sucked out by being tied to such a crummy event, in my opinion. But beyond that, just the fact that this should have been its own moment in Spider-Man was disappointing. So I'm trying to look past it, but this was something that I felt like was such a low blow, especially after them pulling off the clone conspiracy so well. And that's the thing, when this book gets to sing on its own merits, it's fine. And it still does alright, given all this other stuff, but disappointing. Next up is looking at some of the DC. I'm still following Birds of Prey. I think this is a fun book, but I think this is oddly, in one way, calling back too much to my era of Birds of Prey, which is Gail Simone's run. It's one of the longest runs she ever did. It's in a lot of ways where she really cut her teeth and made a name for herself. And this is playing off of some of the legacy of that, playing off of some of the legacy of Birds of Prey in the New 52, and it's trying to use that to build some of its own identity. But it's just so mired in DC right now. You have Catwoman, you have Poison Ivy, and you have all these other characters, and it feels a little muddled and a little confused, and they're kind of abandoning the one new character that they've added so far in a new Oracle, and now they're trying to play to the classic. And it's somewhat interesting, but it's not quite where I think it needs to be to where I could recommend it to people. It's been an interesting ride, but if you're not on it, there's no way I could recommend it to you, because there's definitely better books out there. However, on some level, yeah, enjoying it. I'm curious to see where it's going to go. Part of it, too, is it's one of the few books I'm picking up from DC right now that sadly switched to $3.99, which is making me more likely to look at dropping it. But also, it's once a month, and compared to some of the other ones, it feels like it's moving in slow motion. But what's cool to kind of go the other end with it, this last arc, that was a relatively big deal. 3 issues, which means the issues have punch and things are moving, and you don't have a lot of dead space in them compared to a lot of modern comics, and I enjoy that. So there's that. Next up is Detective 962, but I mean, really, it's been this last arc. what's been really cool about Detective is done something that I've wanted to see for a long time. We are getting the Batverse with all the side characters kind of crash together, and now they're kind of on a team book. It feels X-Men-esque, and I don't know why, because it's not really dealing with persecution of others or whatever, but you definitely have some of that. But I feel like, as much as I like the idea and I've wanted to see it for years, this book maybe took on one or two more characters, because not every character on the team has had their like arc, their time to shine within the team itself. Because you already have, I mean, Batman's there. If he doesn't get a chance to shine, bully, you know, like go read any other DC book, right? So who cares? But there's Azrael. There was Tim Drake Robin. He's sitting in the background waiting to come around again, I guess. And you have Azrael. You have Cassandra, who's not Batgirl here. You have Clayface, who is a villain who I really think they needed more time to shine with, and they haven't. Batwoman, one of the few characters they've actually played into. And I enjoy that. But what we have in here, and a character that they focus on, is Zatanna, and she's not necessarily supposed to be part of the team. They really made this about like her angle and then Azrael's angle, so they're trying to play this technological thing. Oh, and Batwing has been part of the team, and I forgot him. He's a big part of this, though, but it ends up being about Azrael more. And I don't know. That's part of it. Is like I just feel like these characters haven't had a chance to shine in their own light, and there's maybe a few too many members right now to each give them their own breathing room. I think Tinian's doing an interesting job, but I don't think he's quite juggling this difficult of a concept. And it's very few writers are able to do it. I mean, if you look back, Peter David, when he writes like X Factor or whatnot, he does a good job of juggling it. And sometimes characters disappear for an issue or two, and that's not a bad thing. Sometimes there's too many voices and you need to clutter them out, and then sometimes you need to take who you consider your main characters to be and put them to the side so that the other characters have a chance to shine. And then I get to lay into something that I am loving right now, as I've always loved and always will. And you already know what my book of the week is, or do you? Because this week, which is in the first week in a row this has happened, 2 Turtles books. And I'd be hard pressed to split between them. First off, we have this Ninja Turtles Dimension X, which is a complete tie-in to the whole Trial of Krang arc, which is going on right now in Ninja Turtles, and Ninja Turtles 73 was the last issue, and they made a note, this is now the longest running Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. It was actually since 71, so far as I know. But that's still pretty cool. And this was the Archie series? I never quite understood how long the Archie series ran, because I never got to see the later issues, and I've never seen them in the wild, so... and a lot of website archival sites don't have the later ones because they've never actually had them in stock, so they don't count them. It's a very odd bit. Anyways, beyond a little bit of trivia there, this Dimension X thing has been great. It's played to itself well enough that I think you could read it on its own and enjoy it, but I'm not 100% on that. I mean, you could read it and enjoy it, sure, but I feel like you'd be wanting to pick up maybe some more of the context of what's going on. And also, I'm probably assuming you know a bit about... I mean, it's introduced its own characters. It's not too far in its own, but there's definitely a couple of characters that are part of the larger story, just part of the Turtleverse in general. And you probably would want to know that, but I think it's forgettable enough, and considering how much leniency we give for that sort of thing with a Marvel or DC, I think you'd be fine picking this up on your own if you wanted to, but if you were going to go that route, I'd really say just pick up the main Turtles run, starting with the current arc, and go from there, because it's probably the stronger story, but these are more like kind of standalone comics with a through line with it so far. All 2 issues of them. The first one was a lot about an assassin chasing the turtles and them dealing with that, and them trying to keep someone from being assassinated by them, then that character believing the turtles were the assassins and them trying to deal with it. And with everything being alien and up for grabs, it's unfamiliar territory and unfamiliar world. In this one, they end up trying to reconcile and win over someone through the art of fighting, and you have that whole like warrior's creed kind of thing, and they're playing off a bit of that, and the assassin continues to pursue them, but it's only lightly handled in this issue. I think this is just a fun standalone comic on its own, but it does play to some greater whatnot. And then Turtles Universe has actually, the first couple arcs I didn't feel were super strong, and then they had a couple of one-shots, and they had a couple of great like 2-shot stories, and right now they're taking one of my favorite turtle artists, but one of my favorite artists in general right now, Sophie Campbell, and letting her run amok. So the writer Eric Berm is doing this main story with Karai's Wrath and following Karai, who is the Shredder's daughter, and now that essentially the Foot Clan is under Splinter's control and she's no longer beholden to what the Saki family wants, is she's, so far as we know right now, really the only one left, or the only one in her purview as far as she knows. She's trying to find something to do essentially, but learning about herself in a new way, which I think is an interesting thing to do with the character, and they're playing in with some Yakuza and Japanese mysticism, which is something I do really enjoy about the Turtles books, because so often we get Judeo-Christian sort of religious ties, even if it's lighter or more fun, even to something like Ghost Rider, that's heaven and hell and the devil's chasing him. But here we get more dragons and, the other side of mythos and the tide of Buddhism and whatnot. And we also get this really cool character moment in what's Prey Part 2, which Prey is the backup to these, and completely Sophie Campbell writing and drawing. It's only a few pages per the 2 issues so far, but it looks like there's going to be at least 3 parts for both of these story arcs across these. This one has a steeper price point at $5. So again, harder to recommend, though this will be in a trade someday, and it will be glorious then, because I imagine it'll be broken out so you can enjoy the stories, not them being split up. And I think they'll both be served better by being next to, but not broken up from each other. And I do love this story. Like these last 2 issues so far have stood apart on their own. I think you could enjoy these stories if you're just looking for kind of like a Yakuza-based story with crazy mutants and anthropomorphism in there and whatnot. I've loved this arc in a way that I haven't liked some of the earlier Turtles Universe stuff, and it's just a reminder that I do love Turtles, but part of the reason I love the Turtles comics so much right now is even the side characters are so engaging and fun and have some artistic potential behind them that you don't get to see in a lot of other stuff. In fact, I would much prefer reading a Karai book to a Cassandra book from DC right now. These characters are so much more fun, and I do enjoy that. To that end, also, I should mention, I got this, the Turtles Usagi team out there trying, it seems like they're doing it, Sansekai's doing it because they're kind of ramping up on Usagi again. He's just going to pick up where he left off, essentially. And I think that's interesting. I have to say, if they really want to renew interest in Usagi Yojimbo, I don't know if anyone of my people who make it this far in this video anyways have read it, but I think it's an interesting comic. It's one I've wanted to read forever. Color the damn thing. Go back to the old stuff and color it. I know for some people that's blasphemy, and I get it. Usagi Yojimbo, I think, is one of those comics where every time I see the color in it, I feel like it pops and there's something there. When I see the black and white, I get a little confused on the lines when it's supposed to be a lot of that. It's because you're dealing with anthropomorphic characters, so where your eyes go or where certain things are supposed to be, especially in an action scene, can get confused. Is that supposed to be a weapon or a horn on like a rhino? Things like that. Like, I just feel like color helps and makes everything come together in a way that makes it exciting, and without it, it's a bit muddled. And clearly, I'm mostly alone on that. Like, this comic has done great on its own, black and white. Tons of people love black and white. I've just more and more discovered as I keep going back to comics and stuff. I really love it when things are colored. I loved it when Scott Pilgrim got colored. I love the colored versions of Akira, you know. There's a lot of recolorings I really dread and hate because it lost a lot of the artistry of what went into the original colors. See Miracle Man or The Killing Joke. But yeah. And then I just want to talk about this now because I don't think I'm ever going to if I don't now. I read Spider-Man, Deadly Foes of Spider-Man. I really think they could have let the Spider-Man slide on it. This was a fun book. It was written by Danny Fingeroth, who's someone I've never heard of before, but maybe that's just me. This trade collected Deadly Foes and Sinister Foe? What was the other one? The Lethal Foes of Spider-Man. Sorry about that. So Deadly Foes was a really fun romp, 4 issues, and it really was kind of like a precursor to the Superior Foes of Spider-Man. It really played on the angle and had some fun with it, but didn't go to straight, like, goofy, nonsense. I mean, it was goofy nonsense. It was 90s Spider-Man, but it was trying to play it somewhat straight and really play with the idea of the villains, but they had to rope in Spider-Man directly. You could tell there's just kind of that need and kind of that lack of trust for the comic to kind of do all right without putting their quote-unquote star in there. And I think the comic suffers a bit for it, but at the time it was necessary. It is what it is. The second arc, Lethal Foes, just took some of those villains from the first one that ended up fighting each other and just throws into a round robin of basically every V-list Spider-Man character at the time. I don't even know if Sturgeon, who's this dinosaur man, was the Spider-Man villain or just someone knocking around the Marvel universe, but he's there. And there's Swarm, who's this guy made of like bees, and they're all just like round robbing and just fighting each other. Spider-Man's just trying to shut it down. Eventually he does, with the help of this, that, and the other thing. It's interesting and was really cool. You could tell at the time for the 90s it was fun because this gave the villains a little more breathing room to be characters and have problems with each other. And the cool part of these being the kind of the schmucky villains is you got a lot of pettiness. You got a lot of problems going on, which made the story fun and dynamic to read because these guys are too stupid to make a good decision. Actually, one of the most interesting characters in here is the Rhino, because people keep underestimating him because he's supposed to be the lummox, just the brawn. He's not particularly bright, but compared to these super scientists, he's keeping his eye on the prize. Initially, he just wants to get enough money to cut off his rhino suit, or so he claims, as he's working with the Kingpin, you find out on the back end. And once he gets his suit off and he's retired and has everything he wants, he realizes he's bored as hell, and so he gets some money together to go get a rhino suit back on and get back into things. And I thought that was just such a weird character arc that made sense. Like, this guy's a goon, but he loves what he does. And actually, to get to where he could to take off the suit, he actually had to outplay the Kingpin, which was such a cool character moment. Like, the Rhino outplayed the Kingpin for a moment, and then let himself get bought back in because he just missed the action. that was really cool to me, and the Rhino's not a character, you know, I ever expect much from. I do expect him to be the Lummox myself, and 9 times out of 10 he is. And in this book, I'm like, wow, we get a moment. So, yeah, I don't know. Been reading a few other things. I've been looking through some back issue stuff, trying to find interesting stories of Ghost Rider, because I never read much of him. And I found a couple stories, like one where he tries to outrace death, and he manages to pull something out at the end, and a couple others. A lot of them is him fighting the devil, which I mentioned earlier. It's why it came to mind. And I hear Jason Aaron's run is supposed to be like the primo modern Ghost Rider run. So I'm kind of curious. We'll see if I can check that out. Whatnot, yeah. But that's a whole pile of what I've been reading. What have you guys been reading? You know, let me know. Link me to your videos, whatever. And I'll catch you soon with another comic review.